Afternoon. My name is John Carter, and I'm the city attorney, and I'm the facilitator for the Redistricting Committee appointed by the council. And we are here tonight to have our fifth meeting. We had, between the fourth and the fifth meeting, we had our input session, which we'll talk about in a moment, but this is actually our fifth meeting that this group has come together in formal setting and so forth. I'd like to welcome our committee members back. One's running a little late, I think, but hopefully he'll be here shortly. I'd like to welcome everyone who's joining us by G10, by Facebook, and the other social media platforms. I'd also like to recognize and appreciate his attendance tonight, Mayor Pro Tem Bittner. Thank you for coming out, sir. And I'd also like to recognize someone new to our community who just graduated from school, is now working for the Daily News, Miss Morgan Starling. And she's here tonight covering this meeting for the Daily News. We appreciate her attendance here. At this time, the first order of business is the minutes of the September 22nd, 2021 meeting. I think that was the last time we were together, that were emailed to you, and I'd like to know if there's any modifications that any committee member might have of the minutes. If not, I'm ready to entertain a motion to approve. Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Thank you so much. As I indicated, the last meeting was of this group, the fourth meeting, was on September 22nd, 2021. But 1 week ago, on this very night, we met in this room for our public input session. And before we get into the actual talking about the different options here, I wanted to take a moment and first of all thank all those who came out for the public input session. And we'd like to thank those who especially filled out cards and gave us input. And that's what we were seeking, and that's, I think, what the legislature intended when they required that we have a public input session. At this time, I'm going to turn to our clerk, who's going to, number one, tell you how many people came according to the sign-up list, as you all know. And then we're going to let her read for the public from the comment cards without identifying any of the persons who filled them out. And while she's doing that, the media folks will be showing you some of the still shots that came from that public input session. So, Carmen, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, and good evening, committee. There were 20 individuals who signed the attendance roster, and 6 of those attendees submitted comment cards. Comment card number 1, for wards 1 and 4, they checked option 3 to use Wilson Boulevard as the new ward boundary. And for wards 2 and 3, they checked option 2 to assign Carolina Forest to ward 2. Their comment was, information was laid out well and easy to understand. Comment card number 2, for wards 1 and 4, they checked option 3, use Wilson Boulevard as the new ward boundary. For wards 2 and 3, they checked option 2, assign Carolina Forest to ward 2. Their comment was, graphics were easy to understand. Comment card number 3, for wards 1 and 4, they checked option 3, use Wilson Boulevard as the new ward boundary. For wards 2 and 3, they checked option 1, extend ward 2 to Gum Branch Road. Their comment was, I was briefed by Mr. Carter, Ms. Miracle, and Ms. Miller. I have a much better understanding of the situation. I've made my preferred choices and find that the continuity of these choices accomplishes the intent of this project. Thank you for your efforts during this process. Comment card number 4, for wards 1 and 4, they checked option 3, use Wilson Boulevard as the new ward boundary. For wards 2 and 3, they checked option 1, extend ward 2 to Gum Branch Road. They did not provide a comment. For comment card number 5, for wards 1 and 4, they checked option 3, use Wilson Boulevard as the new ward boundary. For wards 2 and 3, they checked option 2, assign Carolina Forest to ward 2. Their comment was, thank you all for your information and for providing 3 tough choices. Comment card number 6, for wards 1 and 4, they checked option 3, use Wilson Boulevard as the new ward boundary. For wards 2 and 3, they checked option 1, extend ward 2 to Gum Branch Road. Their comment was, thanks for the briefing. I learned a lot. I like option 1 for ward 2 because it keeps Gum Branch as a dividing line all the way. Good luck on the final decision.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
I was well pleased with the attendance and the folks that came out, and we really, really appreciate their input. And as we'll mention at the end, there's another opportunity, as we know, probably on November the 3rd, for people to have a input into this process. I'd also like to say, from the comments that were written, it indicates, to me at least, I hope it indicates to the committee, that the options are clear. There's no confusion here. Whatever option you may pick between 1 and 4 or between 2 and 3, the public, at least the ones who filled out these cards, indicated that the process and the options had been made very clear to them. The next thing is each of you have been given a copy of the PowerPoint that we're now going to begin, and I'm going to start before I turn it over to Angelia. And the first thing that I wanted to do was to just go over the guidelines again, and there's a purpose in my doing this. First of all, after I go over the guidelines, Angelia will come and she will begin with wards 1 and 4. She will go through the 3 options, and both of us will answer any questions you may have. At that point in time, I want to just stop talking. I want Angelia to stop talking, and I want y'all to start talking, and to have an open and honest discussion about what you would like, which option you might want to consider for that division, that is 1 and 4, how you might want to bring that into balance, as we've called it. At the end of that, when someone's ready, I'll certainly recognize anyone who wants to put a motion on the floor and see if there's a second, and hopefully get a majority, if not a unanimous decision. But after you make that decision, what I'd like to do is to come back in preparation for the council meeting and to go over the guidelines and to say, well, these guidelines apply to that decision. One of the things maybe that won't apply is maybe future growth, because we don't know exactly what the Marine Corps is planning on their base as far as future growth. Whereas in 2 and 3, for example, I think future growth is a consideration, and y'all will be looking at that. You kind of see where I'm going. And again, when we go to council, you'll be presenting whatever y'all's decision is, plus the backup that these are guidelines we followed in trying to reach that. Okay? So just quickly going over the guidelines: compact, contiguous, preserve community interest, which we talked last time about, was preserving the existing wards is a clear way to preserve community interest, because they are communities of interest as of today. Minimizing split census blocks, and we've talked about that in several different situations. Minimizing split election precincts. We've not talked about this much, and when Angelia comes up, I'm going to let her talk about that maybe even before she begins her presentation, because she has worked for the county, worked with the Board of Elections, and she has some insights into that. Anyway, I'm going to save the thunder and let her tell you that. Again, avoid pairing incumbents and consider future growth. So these are the 7 guidelines. So Angelia, we'll let you come up now. And the first thing, if you would, please, talk to the committee about the election precincts and your past work and what you know about those, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Regarding election precincts, the election precincts, there's over 20 of them inside Onslow County, and with the exception of just a couple of them, most of them go outside the city limits. The precincts were not drawn with our city limits or our ward boundaries in mind. So some of this ward redistricting will not impact the election precincts for where people go to vote. So they're kind of 2 different entities. And so for tonight, for the election precincts, we will pass that information once finalized boundaries have been picked onto the Board of Elections, but it won't impact the election precincts.
I think it's one other thing I'd just like to add. What I understood Angelia saying is that if you, for example, for Northwoods, you go to the Baptist Church, or the Catalyst Church now they call it, and to vote. That precinct probably has folks voting there from the county, from the ETJ we'll call it, et cetera, in addition to city folks. So this guideline is not as critical as maybe some of the other ones are. Another factor is, if I go in early vote, which we've had that constantly, y'all know that. I've got to give them my address. Then the Board of Elections has got to figure out what ballot they have to give me based upon that address, not based upon what election precinct polling place that I went to. But I thought that was information that I appreciate Angelia sharing with me and wanted to do that. So Angelia, we'll let you move forward now into your presentation.
Okay, just a quick review of the numbers for the 4 wards. We need to move 61 people out of Ward 1. We need to add 2,580 people to Ward 2 and remove 2,276 people from the Ward 3 population. Ward 4 is already in balance, so it's over the minimum and under that maximum. All right, let's take a closer look at Ward 1 and 4. Ward 1 is above the maximum population that is allowed with 19,150. To bring it under the maximum allowed population, we need to remove 61 people out of Ward 1. And then Ward 4 is already in balance with 17,517. All right. Here is the current voting ward boundaries with our area of interest, Wilson Boulevard, circled in red. Here are the 3 options for wards 1 and 4. The first option, to assign Terra Terrace 2 to Ward 4. The second option is to assign Heroes Manor to Ward 4. And the third option is to use Wilson Boulevard as a new ward boundary, and this would impact assigning Terra Terrace 2 to Ward 4, Heroes Manor to Ward 4, and Paradise Point to Ward 1. As always, Livy like numbers around here. So here is the side-by-side comparison of all 3 options. Option 3 has the most balance. Option 2 gives Ward 1 the least amount of room for population growth. Any questions?
Okay, it is now your time to discuss or ask us questions as you contemplate and decide which one of these options you as the committee would like to advance to the City Council. That option doesn't work. Silence is not an option. Yes, sir, Mr. Wright. Ernie.
Yes, you say that option 3 is the most balanced. I think that's what I heard. Okay, could you explain that further?
Option 3 takes 1,382 people out of Ward 1 and puts them into Ward 4. So in terms, if you look at the number line, it is the option that moves those needles, both Ward 1 and Ward 4, a little bit more toward the center when you compare it to option 1 and option 2. Option 2 will allow for the least amount of growth, with Ward 1 would end up being 19,062. It would bring it under, but just a smidge under the maximum. So when in terms of looking at future growth, option 3 moves the needle enough that if in the future more, you would hope more population growth, option 3 would allow you the most wiggle room for future population growth.
Future growth. Option 3.
Option 3 does allow for the most balance and for the room for growth.
At the same time, the area that Ward 1 now covers is not likely to see significant growth aboard the base. If anything, it's going to see more in Ward 4 in the future than it would. Your mic's not on. Okay, now it is. So it's more likely you're going to see growth in Ward 4 aboard the base compared to Ward 1 aboard the base as it was.
That is true. There is some areas like along in Ward 1 where a new apartment complex is going in. So we do want a little bit of growth for future population, knowing that that's being developed.
Is that on base?
No, that is off of,
I was only speaking about on base.
only on base.
I think the elephant in the room also is the fact that New River is likely to change and will have significant less population, whatever happens for the next few years, but what happens 10 years from now is beyond my capacity to know.
Good point.
And New River would affect which ward?
Ward 1.
And that's town center for those who go back to New River, but the town center discussion.
My major concern, I understand that the closer the red needles are to each other, the more balanced it is. But I also am looking at the map and asking myself, what makes it easier for someone to understand which ward they're in? And also, I'm looking to see that communities are not split. So, I mean, I can live with any of those, but I would, from a balance standpoint, I would prefer option 3, but, you know, I'm okay with any of the options in this case. And I can certainly understand Mr. Hargett's concern with option 2.
One of the points of the options are that everyone aboard the base is in the Jacksonville precinct.
Yeah.
So there's no confusion about where you go to vote because everybody that's on board the bases votes at the Jacksonville precinct.
Regardless of whether they're in Ward 1 or Ward 4.
That's correct.
Okay, good point.
Correct, but if areas in the same subdivision decide that they want to get together and do some campaigning for one candidate or another, the opportunities there when they're not split into too many pieces, but I don't think any of these does that.
The point of neighborhood aboard the base is a construct of the Marine Corps, not us, you know, whereas off base, there are historical neighborhoods that will be redone as a result, not of this, but because of circumstances that are going on otherwise. I mean, I just point out that the downtown and New River are going to be substantially changed in the next 10 years.
Other comments or thoughts?
Over time, those numbers will come back in New River, I would think.
Yes.
So, which probably would produce equal or more growth in that process. So I like option 3.
Other comments?
Well, when we say future growth for option 3, what area are we talking about? Realizing about the New River problem, but if we say future growth, are we taking New River into account, or are we thinking of some other area, either on base or in the civilian community?
I was thinking of the new apartment complex that's going on off of Blue Creek Road. That's on base.
Yeah, Blue Creek School Road. You may have heard that in some of the town center discussions. That's affordable housing that has been, it is in, let's see, is that, I know it's annexed, but Ron, I believe, is that in, it's hard to tell from here if that's in Ward 3 or Ward 1. That's what I'm having.
It could be either one, depending.
Yeah, I'm not sure from these maps which ward that is, but again, that is what was referenced. There is some affordable housing in that area.
Meaning Ward 1 future growth.
But again, I think future growth is a lot more hard to put your hands around than it is in the discussion about wards 2 and 3. We all hope that Town Center, New River comes back with the same population or more, depending on how it's developed. But some of that area could become back as mixed use, commercial, et cetera, some affordable housing. So we just really don't know there. And again, to some extent, outside of some redevelopment in that area, it's hard to see, at least for me to see, that there's a lot of land to have new growth again, and I'm comparing 1 and 4 to 2 and 3. 2 and 3 is where the city will grow, in my opinion, in the next 10 years. And I think we made that in one of the earlier statements, and we've talked about some of those areas there. So again, maybe future growth is not as critical a discussion point here as it is to maintain the integrity of the two wards with a minimal amount of movement.
Well, if that was the case, then option 2 would be the minimum amount of movement, because it's only 88, movement of 88 people versus 1382 on one and 1388 on another. Correct. So, I mean.
And in your comment about Blue Creek Road, wouldn't that, I mean, are you going to make a suggestion, as was done in 2010, about the extension of lines into the future? Because it would appear to me that would be part of Ward 3, not part of Ward 1 at all.
Maybe, again, it's not online yet, they're not been built, so they probably have not, quote, been assigned to a ward, because there's no structures there. And this is a satellite annexation, okay? So again, it looks unlike with Glenn, that's probably going to go into Ward 3 when it does come online, those units come up, and it's actually assigned to a ward. And what Glenn is referring to is back in 2010, the council made a distinct instruction. It's actually in the resolution, as I recall, where future growth was to occur and to be added to, if at all possible, towards 2 and 3. And again, talking about where the future growth of the city is, that again may be a consideration that the council may want to give that instruction.
With an extension, an invisible extension of Henderson Drive as a dividing point between the two wards. For in 2010.
10, yes, sir. Now, I can understand. Today, we'll just, that will have to be decided depending on what y'all do with 2 and 3, where the invisible line is.
To be sure.
Good discussion. That's what it's all about.
There was something brought up at one of our meetings about Wilson Boulevard and the growth on, well, being able to delineate easily where you're going to vote on base by Wilson Boulevard being a delineator. Is there any potential growth on one side or the other of Wilson Boulevard on base?
I think, Mr.
Opinion, most of the growth that the military is going to have is not going to be in Ward 1 or 4.
It's not,
But it's more likely that it would be in 4 than in 1, based on what lands are already there and what actions they've already drawn.
right.
Most of the reason that the city's population didn't grow quite as much as everyone expected is that obviously a lot of areas outside of the city limits aboard the base have population now.
Right. So, I mean, we're really not talking about future growth on base.
Right, and when you talk
Very
about...
limited.
That's right, and when you talk about where they're going to vote, they're all going to vote in the Jacksonville precinct.
Right.
Yeah.
The majority of the area that, at least on the northern part of Wilson Road, is really housing areas. And in my personal opinion, because of the private-public partnership, they pretty much built out all the housing that they're going to build on the base. In other words, for years, the base, all the military bases have basically supplied about 25% approximately of the housing for families. And the base is at a number like that. They've got about 5,200 units on the base. So I don't see any housing going in the area there. Then the other you would talk about would be group quarters. You already have a new regimental area built, at Wallace Creek. The only construction that I'm aware of that's going to go on in that area is headquarters construction. It's replacing the MEF in the old hospital and building them a new headquarters building. So, there's what I would say is there's probably a minimum amount of housing that's going to be built for either families or unaccompanied personnel on the base. Based on what's gone on with the Hurricane Florence recovery construction and the previous 202K construction.
So what you're basically saying is that the growth is minimal for purposes of housing and for purposes of barracks or more people on that side of Wilson Boulevard.
Yeah.
That's the likelihood of growth is minimal. Okay, that answers my question.
And that's the case in both wards, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That both minimal amount of growth on base in both wards. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it, because when you see too where some of the other construction have happened, even with some of your troop quarters, you know, some moved down to Courthouse Bay, you know, and they're down there, but some also moved to Stone Bay. And Stone Bay right now is not in the city limits.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
It also would be worth noting that when you talked about the 19,062 being, you know, a fairly high number, it's only 163 more than the 18,899. So you're not really talking about a huge difference in numbers there. And then the 18,905, you know, fits on the low end of that too. So you're not talking about a.
I'm impressed, Mr. Spring. You're doing math in public.
I double checked, triple checked. I didn't have anything to write with because my kids at school would remind me if I got it wrong. Thank you for backing me up. So again, I can live with any of those three. I see option 2 has the fewest number of people impacted. Option 3 has the most balance.
Well, I speak in favor of option 3. I mean,
Option?
option 3, you know,
Okay.
it's just
I
because.
make a motion, we go with option 3.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Mr. Johnson.
I just got a question. I'm looking at Torrey Terrace 2, that's considered also in 3. In option 1 and option 3, Torrey Terrace 2 is considered.
Yes, sir. That would be, if the motion is presented, to Torrey Terrace, Heroes Manor, would all come into Ward 4, and then, is it Paradise?
Paradise Point.
Paradise Point would move from Ward 4 into Ward 1. Wilson Boulevard would be the dividing line. And again, as we've talked before, that's not a division of any kind of precincts. But Ward,
When we're looking at option 3, we're kind of combining all of them together to make 3.
Correct.
Okay.
other discussion? Okay. I'll take a vote. All in favor, would you please raise your right hand? Okay. All opposed? Likewise. Okay, I take that to be unanimous. Now, let's take a moment before we go to 2 and 3 and go back, if you just thumb back with me here to the guidelines. So we can check these off and we can tell the council that your decision was, I think it was clearly based upon compactness. Any one of these would have been compact, contiguous. Again, we've already said that the Wilson Boulevard being the dividing line does not divide any census blocks, certainly communities of interest. So I think the 4 on the first page clearly all meet the test. Probably, we're not going to, I don't think we have enough knowledge to say about election precincts, but really we haven't done anything from the knowledge we have here. Whichever way of these options you went with, they're all going to vote in New River anyway.
Voting the same way.
Yeah. So, and avoiding incumbency and future growth, I guess, was the one y'all struggle with the most as far as what, if any, future growth. So it looks like most of the boxes there were checked, including, you know, we can talk about, or whoever presents this, talk about the, all 7 of them in reference to that decision. We'll put that on. So I'll ask Angela, are there any questions or comments at this point before we move on to 2 and 3?
I do have one. I have a question. It's probably not related to this, but I'm just dying to know. It has to do with precincts.
Back up.
Precincts are different from polling places.
Precincts dictate the area of which the residents inside that precincts have an assigned polling location.
And those are subject to change, correct?
They are subject to change. They haven't changed in a very long time. But yes, the Board of Elections can change the boundaries. Just like sometimes polling locations change, and that's usually due to, the facility can no longer be a polling location, so sometimes it'll change to a different church or a different facility that the Board of Elections uses for voting.
Okay,
Still be in the same precinct.
sure.
And I asked Angela a question before tonight. There is not an equal number or anywhere a balancing in precincts. I mean, you may have a large number in one and another, just a small number. I mean, there's no balancing like y'all are trying to do here with the wards in reference to how precincts are drawn.
And the precincts don't, especially with the 2020 census block change, don't follow the census blocks. So.
Is there a possibility that a precinct that's outside the city but includes city residents would have problems running a polling place for, let's say there were only 25 residents that were in the city, but were in that precinct and there was no other election going on at the same time?
There are only, I believe, the New River one and the Jacksonville one are the only precincts that are 100% inside the city limits because of the ETJ area. Many of the other precincts, their boundaries extend beyond that of the city limits. And so you're going to have residents in the ETJ area that will be voting at the same polling location as city residents.
Presently, those precincts are within the city limits of Jacksonville, even though they do have voting area outside the city limits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments or questions before we move to wards 2 and 3? Okay, Angelia?
Okay, just a quick review of the numbers for Ward 2 and Ward 3. Ward 2 is below the minimum population with 14,691. To bring it to the minimum allowed population, we need to move 2,580 people into Ward 2. That's just to bring it to the minimum, that 5%. Ward 3 is above the maximum population with 21,365. To bring it down to the maximum allowed population, we need to move 2,276 people out of Ward 3 and into Ward 2. Okay, our area of interest is where the newest development has occurred in the northern portion of the city, which is going to be along Western Boulevard. Here are our three options side by side as maps. Option 1 is to extend the boundary from Carolina Forest all the way to Gum Branch Road of Ward 2. Option 2 splits a very large singular census block that would then, Carolina Forest would be assigned to Ward 2 and the remaining area assigned to Ward 3. And the third option is to take an area along Henderson and extend the boundary to Western Boulevard. Here we go. Okay, here's a side-by-side comparison of all three options, taking a closer look at those numbers. Option 2 has the most balance. Option 3 has the most impact on the current population, moving 4,048 people into Ward 2. Any questions?
Do you happen to have a household count for the area of Carolina Forest that would be placed into Ward 2?
We only looked at total population.
Right. But I mean, I think it would be said that there's a significantly smaller amount of households in the area that you'd split off from the current Carolina Forest subdivision.
Where the split would occur is along the backside of the parcels for Carolina Forest, so it would move all the residents of Carolina Forest, those apartments, those single-family homes. The remaining of the census block is mostly mixed commercial use. So, and I think one apartment complex, which I think is called the Palisades. So there would be one apartment complex would be moved into Ward 3, and all the single-family homes and those townhomes and those apartment complexes that are located in Carolina Forest would get moved into Ward 2.
So Glenn, you're kind of directing it at option 2, that is splitting that and moving all of Carolina Forest over. That's that 35 number.
That's the point, is just that. It makes no difference. Be the fewest, it'd affect a lot of people, but it's the fewest number
Right.
of people.
Correct.
What is the dividing line between, in option 2, what is the dividing line between the,
It is an unnamed creek that is, that would be used. It is also used as the parcel boundary for all those properties. That creek dictates the back of their property.
Okay.
So for the split, we would just follow the creek and us, as a result, also the parcel boundaries for all of those parcels.
and the gray area that's below that? Is that developed area, undeveloped area?
That is, I believe,
It's undeveloped area, it's not annexed into the city.
yes, it's unincorporated Onslow County.
Is it potential housing area?
It could be apartments, it could be commercial, just developers own the land and this, being marketed.
And because of its location, it could fall, except for the little piece that juts into Ward
Ward,
2,
yes, sir.
it could have the possibility of going either way.
Can you go back to the map that's of option 2, that you can, do you have to have one of those that's full-sized screen?
I'm sorry.
This one, Glenn.
You only have the
Right.
pedestrian. I think you see most of what's in the left-hand side of option 2 is not developed, but has the huge potential for development. And they
Remember,
know of at least one housing development that's planned there that's pretty substantive in size.
that's the one behind River of Life Church. It has been annexed into the city for 8 years, and Mr. Sides is actually submitting the plans, and it's going to be something at the Vineyards, but we have, up to this point, called it the Vineyards, but clearly that's the largest housing development there. And while we're talking about it, as I pointed out last time, if you go down Ramsey Road, behind Carolina Forest there's a couple of smaller housing would be coming on, one through Mr. Tim Baker and one through Mr. Garland and Mike Tootin. But there are definitely housing developments in both of these areas if you went with option 2 that could be added to either one of the, some to option 2 and some to option 3.
Yeah, I think we agreed that both areas have great potential for growth, so
Yes.
option 2 looks good to me.
Other comments?
I like option 2. I mean, it definitely has a balance, and I think it gives us that, the area that we don't know what's going to
Right.
show up, it gives us the ability to place in either one.
I'm confident that Ward 2 will, it's going to grow.
Yes.
Question. Area of interest that is on that map there.
Yes, sir.
Now, where exactly is that? Is that the growth area that we're talking about?
Yes,
As far
sir.
as future growth,
Let's,
for Ward 3?
let's look at what's on the screen so the public can see it too.
Okay.
If you look at option 2, can you identify where Western Boulevard is on there?
Yeah,
Okay. Below that is in blue.
Is Ward 3.
Okay, that would be the option 3. That's the Cardinal Village section that's bounded by Western, Henderson, and Gum Branch. Option 2, your question was where the growth areas would be? Okay. The growth areas would be, if you look up in option 2 and can identify there, it's hard to see, but it's Ramsey Road that runs down. You see that right there, Ernie? Look, we have an accentuator here. We're gonna,
Backside of it.
yeah, she's going to mark it for you. Hold on one second. Yeah, see, Ramsey Road runs the whole length of that area there. It runs right down Carolina Forest, because all of Carolina Forest is in the city. On the other side of Ramsey Road is Carolina Plantation that is not in the city. Okay? So the growth that I was speaking of, if you take Ramsey Road and you go toward Gum Branch into the gray area there's a couple of areas of growth there that Mr. Tootin and Mr. Baker have identified and talked to our planning staff about. And so that's the area that we think there's going to be some growth there, which again would add to Ward 2 if y'all go with this option.
Okay,
The
now,
other
this
growth-
option, not to interrupt John, but real quick while it's on my mind, this option would keep Cardinal Village intact, option 2.
It would
keep
stay in-
Cardinal Village, wouldn't break Cardinal Village up,
No.
which has been a long-established
Since the
residential
ward,
area.
yes, sir. Since the ward system began, Cardinal Village has been in Ward 3. This would leave Cardinal Village in Ward 3. It would not impact them at all if y'all selected to go with option 2.
Okay.
Other comments?
I'm in favor of option 2 for the reasons others said before, but with the fact that there's a creek there dividing the census blocks and the clear lines on the road, not breaking up Cardinal Village, I think since it supports future growth, this will be good looking towards the future because we've got the clear established lines of where the wards divide.
Did I hear that in the form of a motion, Ms. Joyce?
Make a motion.
I make a motion that we go with option 2 for redistricting, but wards 2 and 3.
And I'll second that motion.
Mr. Wright seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, indicate by raising your right hand for me, please. Excellent, thank you. Thank you so much, Angelia. We'll just take a moment and look back, but I think y'all have made my job easier because of just looking at the guidelines, again, with your discussion about future growth, et cetera. I think all these guidelines have actually been applied to both of the discussions that you've had and can be, legitimately, I think, to argue to the council that you have considered all of the guidelines that we've talked about from our first meeting in your discussions and making these 2 recommendations that you've come up with here this evening. Okay. See if I can do the next one. Okay. All right. Before we get to that, let me talk just a minute. The thought process that I have, at least, is that, of course, there's a public hearing in front of council. That will be held on November the 3rd. I thought that before the public hearing that I would make a presentation going over to council what you as a committee has done. Very, very quickly, go over the 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5 meetings, touch on the public input, talk to them about the guidelines, and certainly I want to talk to them about the division that y'all did early on of those 2 census blocks downtown. That was not a redistricting as we talked about it. That was to keep the wards intact as we know them today before the council does anything. After that, I would like to have one of y'all to make a presentation to the council of what your recommendation is. And we'll prepare the slides and the comments, but basically, to let them know that the committee has come forward and that your decision, as I recall, is option 3 on the division of wards 1 and 4 and option 2 on the division of wards 2 and 3. And then after that, any questions from myself or y'all as committee members or whoever that presenter may be from the committee. And after that, the council would open up for public comment as required by law, and then see if anyone wanted to speak in favor or against it or whatever, and then would let the council take it from there. Does that sound like a good plan? Do I have any volunteers? Yes, sir.
I volunteer Mr. Wright to be our spokesperson.
Second that volunteer.
Mr. Wright, are you willing to take on this responsibility? You've only been here since this lawsuit was filed back in the late 70s or 80s.
You're still blaming me for that.
Would you work with this?
Yeah, I'll be
think that's-
honored.
One lawyer to another.
Well, I think that, that's right. I think that's very appropriate because of Mr. Wright being here since it was,
It's my 3rd go-round.
and his 3rd go-around on redistricting. He holds it because he goes back and we can go over that, but I think we did in our history lesson back in session 1. But that'd be great, Ernie. We'll work with you and we'll make that happen. One other thing before we get to this next slide, and that is something that happened, in 2011, when Mr. Hargett was here mainly doing this instead of me, There was a meeting of that committee that happened on May the 19th, 2011, because at that time, remember, it had to be pre-cleared by the Department of Justice. And so after the council identified what plan they wanted, then this committee, or the committee that it sat at that time, met again, and they had an outside attorney who worked with them at that time, and they were working to get the package together, which included all materials, maps, minutes, and so forth. I was here at that time also. And this is what happened at the end there. Mr. Carter suggested in that the committee may want to authorize staff to review and approve the minutes of today's session in order to facilitate the process instead of calling the committee back together. Again, a motion was made by, at that time, Bob Warlick, seconded by Ms. Brown, and it was unanimous that the attorney and the city clerk would approve the minutes. Again, this is just to make the package complete, not that it has to go to the Department of Justice, but again, I would like, if y'all would feel appropriate, to entertain a motion to allow the clerk and I to put together the minutes and to approve those, and so that you won't have to be called back into session unless the council sends you back on November the 3rd.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Again, trying to just close all the loopholes hopefully there. And it worked back then. We got it pre-cleared, didn't we, Glenn? And so, again, we don't have to go through that, but hopefully there won't be any issue here. Again, the next meeting would be, and we want all of you to be here on November the 3rd at 5 p.m. Again, please feel free when the public hearing is opened, if you want to stand and say whatever, this is your committee, it's your work. And we would like, any comments you may have, and anyone from the public who feels like they would like to come and speak. Again, we've relayed to the committee the public comments that were on the cards. But again, the concept is on November the 3rd, that at 5 o'clock after the presentation and the public hearing, that the council, we hope, will adopt the recommendation that y'all are making to them. If that happens, it's important to note that that would therefore open up the filing period for city municipal elections on December the 6th at 12 o'clock, and they would close at 12 noon on December the 17th. That is, again, would ensure the longer period of filing and so forth. But I just want to say personally, it's been an honor and a pleasure for me to work with each of you. Glenn.
Is the committee going to be allowed to make a suggestion or to offer something about future growth as to where the line would be between 2 and 3?
Excellent point. Would you want Mr. Wright to make that as far as part of his presentation? Would you like to make that? Or I'll tell you what we could actually do. We can put it in the resolution like it was last time. I believe, am I correct, Madam Clerk? You remember looking? I'm 99% sure it's in that resolution that said future growth would be added to wards 2 and 3.
Yes, but I think that it would also delineated the Henderson Drive extension as the delineator between 2 and 3. Obviously, that line no longer can be held valid in entirety because of what split was taking place. But I think that some extensions to, particularly Carolina Forest extension of the creek, and then perhaps some extension up there. You have a census block that is outside of the city limits. It's got 200 and some people in it in the Ramsey Road area.
Right.
And that's already, it's in a different it's a different ward than that line, So, I mean, I think that memorializing where those lines would be the better answer.
Got some suggestions as to how we might, like you did Henderson Drive, where of course it never is extended beyond Western, but that was how it might be memorialized that we could actually put in the resolution?
I think if we could put on the screen the map of the wards as they would exist this way, perhaps that option 2, and then look at that as a point. But I think some sort of extension of any splits that occur now would be, you would attempt to honor the left and right, so to speak, of those types of splits. The issue is going to be is that now you're going to see substantive growth, in Ward 2, if those annexation pieces on Ramsey Road, because with what Mr. Prince has presented his people with what the extension of Parkway is going to do, that's going to likely significantly add population in that area.
Take a moment and look back over the wards 2 and 3 options. If you look at the center one there, we can actually, and I'll try to go back for the public here, just a minute, see if I'm going the right direction. Yes. If you look at this, you can see there where that unnamed water source, creek, if you will, runs right into Half Moon Creek. So that's where that's going to dead end right there. So clearly, everything from that unnamed creek over toward Ramsey Road should go into Ward 2. The other side over there, but unless we just draw an imaginary line, I don't see any other landmarks that would help us there, Glenn, unless you can see something there.
Well, that's a great option potentially, is to extend that creek into Half Moon.
Yes.
And then make anything north of Half Moon.
Okay.
And east of the unnamed creek that's there that extends from it, to be in it, because the issue there is that those unannexed parcels along Western Boulevard are someday going to come in the city likely when they wish to be served with water and sewer.
We're making sausage, but that's okay. If we, you've already expressed, and you're exactly right, Ward 2 will have growth, no question, especially if the Jacksonville Parkway is punched through in the next 10 years all the way to Ramsey Road or curves around to Highway 17, whatever one of those spaghetti models that DOT accepts. So what about this, Glenn and committee? If we took the unnamed creek all the way up to the Half Moon Creek, and then follow Half Moon Creek to Ramsey Road and say anything in that section would come into Ward 2, and that anything on the other side would come into Ward 3, because I believe we think at least that Ward 3 will probably, outside of the vineyards, have less growth than maybe Ward 2 will have because of the fact of the different things that are considered there, especially the Jacksonville Parkway extension.
Well, particularly because look what adjoins the portion that we just split off. That subdivision out there, they're not going to come into the city. There might be some parcel there that's right on Gum Branch Road that might be, but that would be the logical thing there. So it's to the right of the unnamed creek and to the north of Half Moon Creek.
Okay, John,
Yes, sir.
purposes of the public, they don't have the benefit of the map and things like that. And I was hoping like the red line, something that you drew before,
Accentuator.
we can show going along the Half Moon Creek, to where you're talking about.
Very good point, Ernie. Just a minute. Let's get,
So the public can at least see what we're talking about.
we can get the accentuator. Okay, all right. This is the unnamed creek. Okay, you see where the terminus there? It terminates, or it actually feeds off or feeds into Half Moon Creek.
Right.
All right, I'm going to take, come on. I'm pressing too hard. You have to do this very lightly. This is Half Moon Creek. Okay, so those are the boundaries. And over here, as we said, this is going to be, and this is Ramsey Road. Is everybody with us so far? What I would suggest is, you see, all this blue over here is already in the city. It's not been developed. That's the vineyards, or part of it is there. That's where you're going to have some housing growth. We already know that, and that's in this area right here. I don't know exactly how many, but that's the largest housing growth that we know is coming in at this point in time. As we indicated before, there's two housing, and I'm going to draw a couple of circles here, that are being planned to be close to and next to Carolina Forest. So clearly those two circles that I've drawn there need to become part of Ward 2 because they're really becoming part of Carolina Forest. They're going to be annexed in the city. They want water and sewer and so forth. So clearly in my thought process, if you follow the unnamed creek up to Half Moon Creek and follow Half Moon Creek over to Ramsey Road, all of the property in there, if it's annexed in the city, needs to come into Ward 2. Everyone?
John, I would just add that line that you've drawn at the northern edge of the portion that's currently in the city, if you just erase that line, I bet
No.
Angela can touch that and just make that erase. She knows how to do that. And that the area, what we're talking about, continue the Half Moon Creek line all the way till it's off the screen.
Okay.
And
Just draw an
there's a little
imaginary.
eraser on the thing there. So, I mean, that to me would be the logical
Oh, okay.
delineator there, so that you would keep everything that's to the east of the the unnamed creek to its intersection with Half Moon Creek and continue Half Moon Creek out. Now, I don't have a memory as to what Half Moon Creek does after it crosses that other road there, but I would think that you folks could propose an option to extend that out in such a way that would be the dividing line between 2 and 3 in that
So
area.
the concept, Glenn, is to follow the unnamed creek all the way up to Half Moon Creek and then to draw an imaginary line straight up at that point in time, just like that to,
Well, no, it would not go up. It would make the 90.
oh, it would go along.
So everything that comes in north of the line and west would be into
Gonna start-
Ward 2
Go ahead, get back.
and Ward 3, excuse
Ward
me.
3.
Ward 3, thank you. Ward 3, and everything that's to the east and south of Half Moon Creek
Erase it all.
would be in Ward 2.
Okay. All right, I'm going to make, excuse me, we'll get there in just a minute, folks.
Use the back of your fingernail, it works a little better.
May need you to come up, Glenn.
No, you have expertise
The
there to your
magic
left.
pen.
I want to mark again. Give me a color, red maybe.
Flip to the other side.
The right side?
Yeah, it moves
There we
when you go in that area, it moves out of it.
Let's see if this
There you
works.
go.
All right. Am I good so far?
Right there.
Right.
Follow the creek at that point
Turn right.
and go straight.
And now go
Going
down a
all the way.
little bit.
Do you see two blue lines there? Which line am I supposed to?
Go to the one that's south,
That would be the one going toward 2 or the one
the
going
right.
toward the right?
the one to the right.
Okay, all right.
Right, because that's Half Moon Creek.
So
The part that if you kept going up is another creek that goes into Half Moon that I don't know what its name is.
okay. So again, for our purposes, we would follow the unnamed creek up to Half Moon Creek and then follow Half Moon Creek across Ramsey Road.
All right, and then just one thing further. Does that unnamed creek, where does it come out on Western?
It comes out, I'm not sure, let's see, just a minute. You said, it doesn't come out on Western. It appears, Glenn, that it comes,
Okay, so it comes off on the other.
Yeah,
In
so-
that case, then I would propose that the 3 parcels that are not now annexed would be defaulted to go into.
Ward 3.
Ward 3.
yeah. Well, I think the unnamed creek, you're right. If you, again, following the red line, I'll retrace it, following the, you see just as it appears on the screen is what we will write
Yeah.
up.
So the note that will make, that dividing line, that the existing part that's in Ward 2 would remain in Ward 2, even though we're talking about any future development.
Yes,
With the exception perhaps of that one little nodule there that seems to, the piece there has got a peninsula look to it. I would think that you'd want to make that contiguous.
I think the primary thing that we would want to do in that is to say where the unnamed creek moves into Half Moon Creek, to take a right and follow Half Moon Creek, that anything to the right would come into Ward 2, everything else would go into Ward 3.
With the exception of that little nodule there that she can help point out there.
That piece there.
So the nodule, okay.
Well, I was proposing, is it more logical that that nodule would go into, is it part of the Ward 2?
Sure,
Is it part of
maybe
that housing development there? I mean,
And it may be an area that may,
That's an apartment complex.
but the nodule, there's no development there.
Oh,
not at this
no,
time.
that's not developed. I don't know if it will be. I think that's a lot of wetland over
Yeah, I
there.
think that's the real issue, is
But,
the wetlands.
then this area here, that's apartment complexes that they are expanding.
Okay.
Okay. So-
My intent was to be the left side of that nodule up to where the creek is now dividing the census block. That would have been if I was drawing, that's where I would do.
I think again,
Well, that's a little Carolina Forest, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, just in case it actually comes in, you'd already have that decided.
okay, let's see.
You can erase.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, we'll try one more time.
So go on the left side of that little peninsula till you get
To the
to
creek.
the creek, then follow the creek. No, 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 on the left side.
Okay, so it's your left, my right, I'm sorry. We'll get there. Where's the eraser? Okay, all right.
This is sausage.
All right, it's important sausage.
No, I'm talking about of the peninsula, just the actual part
Oh,
that's
okay.
actually there. Parcel.
Yeah.
That's what it is, that's what it is then, okay.
So are you wanting to cut the peninsula here?
Yes, yes, so that everything to the right of that goes into Ward 2,
So that little
including that
peninsula would be
undeveloped place there that would be. And then you would use the extension, and as we drew it before, up to Half Moon Creek.
Go ahead, you don't understand.
Okay.
I just-
So it would be like coming up here, coming up there, coming up around.
Yes, good job.
You got it.
We got there.
So
Madam
everything
Clerk,
to
did
the
you record
left,
that in the minutes?
you know, would be Ward 3. Everything to the right would be Ward 2.
Be comfortable with that?
Yep.
I'll take that as a consensus, and we will write that up as a recommendation. Actually, unless the council wants to strike it, we'll put that in the actual resolution, just like it was treated last time.
Staff would appreciate knowing where it is. I know the clerk would like to know so that it's no question when she sends stuff over to the Board of Elections as to the instructions as to what to put in there.
Thank you for bringing that up. Any other concerns or issues to bring before our committee before we adjourn? Again, thank you so much for your time and your work and your helping, your discussions this evening. I think you have served our council well and our mayor and serving our citizens well also. No other comments or questions or concerns, we'll adjourn and see you all back on November the 3rd at 5 o'clock. Thank you so much.